WWE conspiracies. And I want you to pop up on the screen here, Dave, the believability barometer. All right, that sounds kind of cool to say, right?
Double B's.
Double B's,
okay.
baby. And 0 to 5, we'll keep it small, on how actual, you know, believable these conspiracies are. Are you in?
I'm in, dude. I'm very excited for this portion of the show.
All right, so I've been preparing these all week because I wanted to present them to you and to our audience and let you as well as them decide where on the believability barometer this lands. Here we go.
Okay, how many we got?
We just got 5.
Okay.
Now, our first one, number 1, Macho Man Randy Savage had his way with a teenage Stephanie McMahon.
What? I guess I have heard. I've only heard that maybe one other time.
So let me explain. Legend has it, Macho Man Randy Savage and a 16, maybe 17-year-old Stephanie McMahon had a relationship, allegedly.
Yo.
Now, the rumor has never been addressed by Stephanie McMahon directly, and nor has it been addressed by Randy Savage, who passed away back in 2011. Now, this rumor, Dave, came up, took over the internet in 2004, 2005, that these two allegedly had an affair in 1994, which ultimately led to Macho Man leaving the company and Vince McMahon never having him back. Now, the flip side of that was, at the time, Randy was doing commentary and still wanted to perform in the ring, so he went to work for Ted Turner. So depending on which side of that coin you want to believe, where on the believability barometer do you put this one?
I mean, unfortunately, these kind of things have continued to happen and happened obviously way before 1994, and we're trying to prevent them from happening, but they do. Positions of power, you know, it's a power play. I would say there's certainly some credibility. I'd give it a 3.
This could have actually happened. You think?
I think this could have actually happened. I just don't think it did actually happen.
Okay.
And I think not hearing from Stephanie about it, there's certainly many reasons to not address it. If it didn't happen, don't even talk about it. Don't bring it up. If it did happen, maybe it's something you don't want to talk about or bring up.
Right, maybe it's like, okay, well, this is just stupid. I'm not even going to address this kind of thing.
Yeah, don't give it any oxygen. How do you put out a fire? Don't let it breathe.
To play devil's advocate really quick, while doing my research for this, Dave, I came across an article, and there were quotes in there from a former relationship that Randy Savage had with this woman. And according to this woman, Randy was high and drunk and whatever other substances they were doing together at the time, and allegedly he admitted this to her.
Whoa.
Now, can we take what she says as the God's honest truth? Probably not. But I just wanted to put that out there as well. For my money, I believe this very well could have happened. So I'm going to lean on the 3 side, but more towards the I don't buy it. And I don't know how this got started, but I don't buy this ever happening. But could it have? Of course.
Yeah, well, that's certainly a way to kick it off.
Yeah. Let's jump into number 2. And number 2,
All right.
Dave, there were 2 different Ultimate Warriors.
This is really a conspiracy?
Yeah, so I remember this being a really big one when I was a kid, okay? So back in 1991, it said that the original Ultimate Warrior died, and he was replaced by an imposter Ultimate Warrior who was played by Kerry Von Erich. So at this time, the Ultimate Warrior returns. He's not as muscular. He's not as vascular. His hair looks a little bit different. His paint's a little bit different. So that really sparked the rumors that this isn't the same guy, that the original Ultimate Warrior passed away, but the character was so popular and so prevalent at the time that they couldn't just nix it. So they brought in another guy to portray him. Now, of course, years and years down the line, Jim Hellwig would actually pass away after an incredibly emotional speech on Monday Night Raw after being inducted into the Hall of Fame. About every warrior eventually breathes his last breath, like bone-chilling stuff. And then for him to pass away on the way to the airport is just super sad. So that obviously discredits this one, but that's not to say that back at the time in 1991 or so, I remember being a young boy and actually believing this. Where do you land?
Yeah, if I was a kid, I think I would have bought it too. But, I mean, they did that whole stunt with the two Undertakers, like the gray and the purple stirrups.
At SummerSlam.
I loved that. I thought that was so cool. But you think about it, people's bodies change as they get older, as they get off the juice, on the
different
juice,
vitamins, whatever.
To maintain those body sizes and types takes so much food, effort, work. Like that routine has to stay the same to maintain the body size. You look at offensive linemen after they retire and they slim down because they don't need all that extra weight, and they get honestly a lot healthier. So yeah, I don't buy this.
Yeah, to me it's a big zero, but I gotta kind of put this one in the context of the time, where it was very believable, but obviously on the believability barometer, I'm gonna give this one a 0. But it's still an interesting theory.
It's I think that's a fun conspiracy theory.
So my third one,
replace a wrestler.
Yeah. So my third one here, and this is probably the topic within pro wrestling that's been talked about the most. And number 3 is that the Montreal Screwjob was one giant publicity stunt. So you've learned about this, Dave, on the Dark Side of the Ring. Incredible series. Those guys do such a good job. So this has been talked about to death, but here's the gist of it. So the Montreal Screwjob kind of changed the landscape as we knew it in the WWE. Probably the single most talked about thing in the industry. And the cliff notes are, back in '97, Vince McMahon double-crossed then champion Bret the Hitman Hart. And when Bret was in a submission hold by Shawn Michaels, Vince McMahon came down and forced the referee to ring the bell. That way, Bret Hart couldn't leave as champion, and he couldn't take the WWE title to Monday Nitro because Bret was set to start working for Turner in WCW. Now, the late Scott Hall, if you remember, in that very Dark Side of the Ring, he genuinely believed that this was all a work. The camera guy kind of knew right when to zoom in and right when to switch angles, and Vince takes a loogie in his eye for his troubles, and it's like, get in tight, get in tight, get in tight, So it's believed within this, conspiracy theory that this was all one big elaborate work. It was one big elaborate scheme by Vince, Bret, Shawn, and those, involved. So the WWE can move forward. So Bret Hart could become a millionaire, and so Shawn Michaels could become champion. And this is still being talked about nearly 30 years later.
You know what? I think it's still going on. I think it's still a work.
You do? Okay.
To this day.
To this day.
I think, look, if your job was not only to perform at a high level physically, but also basically be an actor all the time, that why couldn't you keep it up for 30 years? Undertaker did it.
Yeah, I hear ya.
So I just think it's very possible. I honestly kind of believe that this is still going on, and I'm going to give it a big 5.
Oh my goodness, a 5. Okay.
Yeah, wrestling community, come at me. All right. I believe it's still going on.
Dave's wearing his tinfoil hat today. Let me put mine on really quick here. So, on the believability barometer, let me explain myself before I give my ranking here.
All right.
I often on the show tell you how I don't care for conspiracy theories, but the truth is I find them interesting. I find them fun. They're they're a good time to talk about because the theory is often more interesting than the actual story. Now, where this is interesting is the Montreal Screwjob is a super interesting story. Even just the facts of it are super interesting, right?
Even if you weren't a sports or wrestling fan, this is a cool documentary. This is a cool angle.
Right. Documentary is the word. I was just going to say, you learned about this in Dark Side of the Ring. But if you want like the first person perspective, you got to go back and you got to watch Bret Hart's Wrestling with Shadows documentary.
When did that come out? Do you know?
That came out in 97, 98. It was right after this had happened.
Wow.
So if you remember in Dark Side of the Ring, they interviewed the audio engineer that day. And that was the guy that put the microphone, the hidden microphone on Bret, which captured the conversation with Vince of what the outcome was going to be and what they actually had agreed to. And of course, Vince didn't hold up his end. So it makes it so tough for me to believe between that documentary, all the years that have passed, and the animosity that Bret held for decades. It's very difficult for me to believe that this was in fact a big giant worked the fans, worked the wrestlers, worked the executives, worked the board. I don't believe it, but part of me wants it to be true, because how incredible would that be? Imagine on its like 30th anniversary, they do a sit down, you know, and Vince is like, I fooled everybody. Part of me wants that to happen.
What if Bret and all those guys are still getting paid to keep it up? What if that's part of a contract? It's like Bobby Bonilla still getting paid by the Mets to this day.
To this
You know
day.
what I'm saying? It keeps coming up, but what if he's still getting paid to keep the story up?
Well, Bret would go on to become a billionaire. Well, a millionaire, excuse me. Vince would go on to become a millionaire. Shawn would go on to become the champion and one of the, you know, single greatest performers that the industry had ever seen. So on the believability barometer, I give this one, I give it a 1. So I'm on the opposite side as you, but
you don't believe it. Okay.
part of me wants it to be true, and I really hope that I'm wrong here.
All right. We're different sides, but I respect that.
Let us know where you land in the comments, okay? We're going to jump into number 4. And this one I think is super interesting, Dave. And number 4 is Vince Russo was a WWE plant sent to destroy WCW from the inside. So you remember Vince Russo was one of the head writers for the WWE at the time. He was responsible, in part, for a lot of the incredible things that we saw during the Attitude Era. Bro. So it's... The theory here is that Vince McMahon, in October of 1999, when Vince Russo left the WWE, he became the head writer for Ted Turner's WCW, and things quickly went on the decline. Like, the finger poke of doom happened, Jeff Jarrett laying down for Hogan. This is the reason this company is in the shape it's in, because of bull like this. And then you got the whole David Arquette fiasco, and even Vince Russo putting the WCW championship title on himself. It's believed that Vince McMahon let WCW hire Vince Russo so he could purposefully destroy their creative from the inside. What do you think about this? What is the probability of that? Because remember, this is in 1999. WWE is kind of already on the upward tick. WCW is on the downward tick. But it's like, this is the final nail in the coffin. We're gonna send him to the W. You know what I mean? Like, is that something you could see Vince doing?
I could see him doing it, but I don't think it happened.
No.
And if we're just talking about believability
barometer,
I'd give it a 5 for believability.
Okay.
But I don't think that's what happened. Right. But I could easily see Vince being like, hey, we're gonna fire you, this whole thing, go over there, mess it up, and then, pay you out or whatever.
Wow. Man, that's just,
I believe it.
It's fascinating to think about, right? Now, Vince Russo has his own show, his own podcast, and the guy catches a lot of crap from a lot of people, including somebody that I really like, Jim Cornette. Those guys are just enemies until the day they're both dead. But I don't know, man. I don't buy that. I don't believe it. I think Vince Russo maybe got a little too big for his britches, so to speak, and wanted to say, hey, well, hey, I did it here. I can go do it over there. And I'm sure they were backing up the Brinks truck for him, dude, at that point. The money must have been crazy. So I just think Vince Russo didn't have that governor on him. He didn't have that Vince McMahon to take all of these, probably out there ideas and figure out how to mold them and how to actually make them fit into the format. So, yeah, I think I don't believe this, but it's super interesting to think about, well, what if,
Right, but do you believe it's possible? Because the believability of it happening.
I believe it's very possible that it did happen, but I don't buy it.
You don't think it did?
Yeah, so I'm going to put it right in the middle with a 3.
All right.
Now,
that's an interesting one for sure.
Isn't it so wild to think about?
Sending a rider, a Trojan horse, if you will.
Right, I was just going to say, talk about the ultimate Trojan horse. It's like, we're going to send him in there and make them think that they hired a guy out from underneath us and that it's going to hurt us. But in actuality,
we got the rain sounds.
I love it. Good old ASMR rain sounds, Dave.
This has now become a rain sound ASMR channel.
Dude.
Thanks for tuning in.
That would be a pretty cool film to watch. It's like we're going to let them think they're getting our top guy, our top, writer per se, but really I'm sending him in there with the worst ideas possible so I can tank everything they're trying to build.
You know what the worst idea possible would be? Is a wrestler whose name was the Trojan horse, and every time he came out, you had to roll one of those horses out in the middle of the ring, leave it in there. The other guy comes out, like, where's the opponent? And he's just waiting around, and the horse opens up and he pins him every time.
1, 2, 3.
Worst idea ever. I just put it out there so nobody does it.
So, our 5th and final WWE conspiracy theory.
Okay. What do you got?
The Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels wasn't actually injured during the Attitude Era. So, Dave, if you remember, Shawn had a casket match with Undertaker. I believe it was at Royal Rumble 97, 98, somewhere in there. I think 98. Catches a backdrop over the top rope. Tailbone hits the corner of the casket and injures HBK. So, let me give you what they have here, okay? Shawn Michaels is one of the biggest names of the new generation era, so to speak. That was when the Hogans and Machos kind of went away, and your Bretts and your Shawns and your Takers started to kind of come into their, spotlight, 94, 95-ish. Now, Shawn's in-ring career came to an unexpected end in the late 90s. But since then, he made sporadic appearances. I think he showed up as the commissioner for a while. He was a special guest referee for a while. But a user on Reddit claims that Shawn Michaels didn't actually have a career-threatening back injury. He says the truth of it is that Vince McMahon put him on the payroll to allow him and his body to rest after dedicating more than a decade to the WWE. And this was also done, more importantly, to prevent Shawn Michaels from signing to WCW.
Oh, to keep him. Interesting.
Where on the believability barometer do you think this conspiracy theory lands? 1 through 5.
Believability, I think it's a 2.
Yeah.
I I think he got hurt. I think he's hurt. I just have seen so much wrestling and now so much behind the scenes to know that even the simplest of falls, you can hurt yourself seriously.
Yeah.
So if he took that fall, that did not look good.
No, it was nasty, you know. Just to play devil's advocate right here, because again, I don't really buy into this either, but it is interesting to kind of think about.
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels allegedly had, you know, faked injuries before to get out of, you know, losing a title or whatever his reasons may have been at the time. Losing his smile and that whole thing. If you ask Bret Hart, that was all just a bunch of BS. But I couldn't imagine, like, faking a serious back injury like that for all this time. But then think about this, Dave. Shawn returns in, what, 2002 or so, and has that, you know, unsanctioned street fight with Triple H. They tear the house down. Unbelievable match. Literally looked like Shawn hadn't lost a single step. And then your guys like The Rock are starting to good drift off to Hollywood. Stone Cold's around a little bit less. And then look who's back. Look who's back in the, you know, main event picture. Look who's back in the spotlight. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
I don't know. I still just think he got hurt.
Same.
And, you know, but you spin a pretty good tale.
Yeah, I'm trying to, you know, just give you the, like, wait a damn second, you know, kind of approach. But yeah, I don't buy this one either. I don't even think that it would be an elaborate scheme to even come up with. It just wouldn't make sense. Like,
no.
Why wouldn't Vince McMahon and the WWE want one of their most talented performers ever to be available to go? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm gonna give that a 1 for sure. A 1.
Yeah, it's not helping the bottom line.
So there you have it. Our WWE conspiracy theories. I definitely want to know where you land on these, because as out there as some of them might be, if you allow yourself to think about it long enough, you'll convince yourself that they're true. So be very careful.